we went for a walk yesterday and prayed, and we're asking God what to tell us. It took us a bit. And then God spoke to us. We're like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. So that's what we've been digging into the last couple of days. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about looking for his story. So we are looking for his story. The word for the year for us in 2025 as a church is his story or history. So there's two meanings. One, we're looking for um, like his story. His story is happening. We're going to be focused on him. Uh, you explained it really well last time. You want to say it again, what you heard for the year?
Yeah. I just feel like the past couple years we've really been focusing on inwardly growing and our story coming out and healings happening and massive shifts in our
In our
lives
personal
and
lives.
yeah, and just like massive growth and just so we're at a healthy place so we can move forward. And I feel like this next year is so much about his story coming out and
Looking at
um,
him.
yeah, and our focus is changing from where we've been and the things we're walking through, our personal journeys, and it's changing to his story. And um, it's just been such an obvious thing lately. I don't know about you guys, but I've had so many things come up where it's been people asking me about God or Jesus or just like the most basic questions where it's been super cool.
Yeah. It's been
So,
obvious that things are shifting in the air. So,
yeah.
so his story. So the two meanings. One is we're focusing on him as his story coming true. So we're not focused on just the work he's doing in us anymore, which we're still doing, and it was appropriate. We didn't miss anything.
And
It's not
he's still
less.
doing work
He's still doing
in
the work.
us. Yeah.
Yep, inner healings, personal coming alive in him. Personal revival is what I call it. Personal coming alive in him. That's still happening, but that's been the focus. And now the focus is going to be on him and what he's doing. So that's his story. The second meaning is we think it's a year of history in the making. So I think it's a very significant year. 2025, it's a quarter. Like, so who knows what there's something that we feel is in the air, and it's a significant year. We're praying it's not like a COVID memorable year. We're praying it's a memorable year because of what God is doing. We don't know what it means. We just know what God told us. So
Yeah.
that'll unfold as we move along.
Yes, totally. But he's been making us healthy emotionally, physically. He's getting to all the nitty-gritty stuff in our lives. And there's been even health things with, I know lots of people have been walking through health
Yeah.
concerns and stuff like that. And I feel like God's just really walking us through that and walking us through without a lot of fear, without, because naturally we go to like, how can we fix this? How can we do all these things? And I think he's just bringing us to a place of just trusting him and it's a different
Yeah.
level of relationship.
So we're kind of looking at today. We thought we'd look at. Well, I want to read a scripture first. I'll read the scripture that God gave us for the year, which is Romans 8. I just heard there was a bunch in there, so I just said, why don't we just start reading Romans 8 together as a family and see what God highlights. And so every week I'm going to pull out a Romans 8 verse and kind of just break it down
I
and
love
see what
that.
God says. And then if you're reading it and there's some questions, you can bring those up. That'd be great. But we're going to read the Romans 8 verses 8:18. So Romans 8 verses 18. So this is one that I've said several times in the last few years, but Romans 8 has a lot of famous scriptures. So this is one of them. For I consider that the suffering of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed to us. So this scripture is powerful in lots of ways. One, well, I like to look at who are they talking to at the time. This is Romans. It's written to the Romans, and they're talking to people who are believing about Jesus, are interested in Jesus, or interested in being a Christian or being of the way, is what they called it. And there was a lot of suffering going on at the time. People were being
Like true
persecuted,
suffering.
like real suffering. People were like Roman candles that comes from lighting Christians on fire, lighting up the streets. They had tons of things happening in the Colosseum that were just against Christians.
Disgusting
Lots and
things. Yeah.
lots and lots of stuff about Christians being suffering. So, and it's not worthy to be compared to the glory that is to be revealed. So, at this point in their life, they have seen some amazing things. They're past Acts 2. They've seen the Holy Spirit come, speaking different languages. They've got miracle after miracle. They've seen Jesus rise from the dead. They've seen a bunch of things, and they're no longer in this prevent suffering from happen mindset. They're in looking for the glory to be seen.
Hmm.
They're on the lookout for where is Jesus's glory next, because we have no idea what's going to happen next, even though there's suffering happening at the same time. It wasn't a void of problems or void of bad times, but their eyes and their attention, their perspective was on glory, God's glory being revealed, God's light being revealed, God's miracles, God's encountering people's lives and them seeing that they're loved and that they have someone they can trust more than anybody else, any other leader of their times. So all that stuff was happening. So that's one of that scriptures. So I believe it's also relevant today. I believe there are sufferings happening today. I believe there's things happening and people are focused on the suffering, but we should be focused on the glory that's to be revealed. So in our language and what we're saying this year, looking for his story this
Hmm.
year, not just the bad things that are happening.
Yes, and if you're
So
focused on the glory, it takes out the fear factor of what could happen because you just know. I mean, like my life here is temporary and knowing God is eternal. So it's just a small little fraction of the life we live. So it's
yes,
just interesting to switch your perspective on that.
it is. So we kind of broke this down into three areas. So three questions in looking for his story. The first one is, how does our perspective need to be changed? So you were just touching on this. So people are getting sick, or maybe some familiar pains are happening this year, maybe even in your body.
Hmm.
Something that you didn't get rid of in 2024. You thought 2024 was going to get rid of, purge all your diseases or plagues, things that are hurting you,
Yeah.
right? And now you've walked in, or maybe you thought you were done because you had no more pain, but you've walked into 2025 and now there's pain starting to happen again.
Isn't there familiar things that pop up that kind of trigger responses from past?
There is?
I mean, I feel like a lot of things that we've dealt with in the past couple years might you think you're done with for life. You think that, okay, this was a season, and then all of a sudden it comes up again. And I have to remember that when these things come up, I'm like, okay, that was a temporary state of suffering that I
Sorry.
was in or that this person was in. But for some reason, our minds naturally go to this scrambling mess of a state where it's like, "Oh, no, what am I gonna do? I've never had to walk through this," and it's like we just walked through this not long ago.
Yeah.
But as soon as the pain
Or not
leaves,
again.
yeah, or not again. As soon as that the situation resolves
Thought
enough,
it was done.
yeah, it's like, "Oh my gosh."
Then if it's bad pain, you go to what's wrong with you, God. It goes
Mhm,
farther than that. So I was thinking of something that in my life that this actually happens regularly, and you have to change your perspective on purpose. It's when I'm hiking. So at the beginning of a hike, the first 3 or 4 miles, you'll have weird pains that try to come up. So I've done long hikes, like 190 miles. I've done like so, but usually the first day, it never fails. The first couple miles, you start to have a little foot pain, or you start to have a little something in your toe, and you're like, oh no, another blister, or oh no, my ankle's bad, and it makes you. It's like your body trying to say, no, 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 I want you to stop. So I'm going to trigger some pain sensors to get you to just quit because I don't want to go through torture or something. I don't know what the body's doing, but I know that most the pains, not all, I don't want to say all because sometimes there are something, maybe you did hurt yourself, but most of the time, it's just a matter of no, it's just my body tweaking out a little bit. I got to keep going.
but our mind wants to
Wants to
believe.
make us quit.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you thought you were having a like, a medical crisis just to find out it was, like, a gas bubble or something?
I almost spit out
You think you're having a
empty.
heart attack or something, and you find out, "Oh, it's not that."
Whoops.
Not to make things little, but, like, that happens, especially when we're so hyper fixated on the immediate, like, "What is happening to me right now?" and not the big picture of what the goal is.
Yeah.
It just makes you too internalized
Yes,
sometimes.
it does. It does.
I think we've all done that, though.
Yeah.
Or am I the only one?
No, we've all done that for sure. So, some I feel like this last long season has been about building trust with God. And our perspective is not just changed about ourselves, that we're different. Like we're not who we used to be. God has done things. So our focus is on Jesus as well. And something that happened last year that was some felt like a small moment, but a big moment in a small moment, a big perspective change in a small moment. And it was at a worship night, and I remember just getting this overwhelming thing saying, "Hey, the only reason I need to see everything, the only reason I need to know everything from God, is if I don't trust Him. The only reason I need to know the future is because I don't believe He's going to protect me from whatever harm's coming." And so it was a shift. Like He's the head, He's the one that sees, He's the one that knows. And if I really trust Him, I don't have to see and know. I just have to trust Him,
Mhm.
and I have to trust that He'll. And that seems to be a theme since kind of around COVID. That's where God was bringing us. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? And so
And that's all we really had.
that's all we had. We didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
So, and I don't necessarily have a problem trusting him, like, because I do trust it, but it's that pain factor. It's the fact that you want to not be suffer. You don't want to go through pain.
Nobody wants to be in pain. Like,
so,
nobody wants to be in pain. It's not fun.
so when you start to feel pain and you start to feel little twinges of things, or you start to run your mind with stories of like, oh, I have to know this. I have to change this. I have to control this. That's because you're telling yourself a story that isn't based on seeing him, who he is. And that was happening in the disciples' day. The disciples went through a pretty big perspective change. They were pretty excited to be accepted by a rabbi that is the Messiah. But in the back of their mind, Jesus never said it, but in the back of their mind, he was there to take over as king. In the back of their mind, they're like, oh, he's going to be in a seat of authority of some kind, and he's going to change the rules. We're going to get justice finally. No more taxation, like we're being, no more torturing and all this stuff that's happening from both the Jews and from the Romans.
They already had planned out what they
Yeah,
wanted to
they already
see.
had, but Jesus never said those things.
No.
But the disciples fell to that the whole time because of the doctrination that they had been raised in.
Mhm.
And so they got free from that. After Jesus rose from the dead, they're no longer going, wow, everything I thought he was going to do, he didn't do, but what he did was better. Right? And now they trust him. That's what changed their perspective about Jesus. And I believe that's what we're in right now. I believe we're in that season right now where we're being challenged to trust him. And I think there's going to be healings this year. I think there's going to be a bunch of things. The only reason you would need healing is if you're sick. And
Which
sick
is
means
kind of not
suffering.
fun.
No, it's not. It's fear based around it. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I do believe that God is going to bring stuff to just prove that he is who he is.
Mhm.
His story, who he is in this world. He's a healer, he's a deliverer, he's a protector. He is one with you. So trust is what he is still working on in this season, not just then.
Yeah.
So
And he can only show us his work when we're in hard situations. If we're always in the okay and we're always fine and just mediocre living life and we're not in severe pain or something doesn't happen, we are not like God doesn't have a chance to show up and show what he can do.
mm,
So
you
it
have to
is
have a
scary.
test to
Yeah,
have a
it is
testimony.
scary to have a year of healing. Like we know that God's going to give us a year of healing, but that means trusting in the middle of whatever our
What
situations
needs
look
healed?
like. Yeah.
Let's
So
be blunt. Whatever is the
whatever
ailment,
needs to get
yeah,
healed.
whatever suffering you're going through, it's to trust him in the middle of that. So
Yes, it is.
So before we move on to the second question, but the first one is what perspectives do I need to change? The one thing we were talking about yesterday when we were praying about this was you are different than where you were. God has been doing his work in you. And so one of the tricks of the enemy will get you to perceive, get you to see yourself as less than you were or what you were, and you're not. You're different.
Yeah.
We are new creations in him. We are new. We are something brand new because of his love.
Yeah. I was going to just say, however you dealt with this situation that you might be in, whatever it is, last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, is not going to be the same. But that's going to try to make it come back to where you were because that's just how the enemy works with things like that. So you have to remember, no, that's not where I'm at anymore, and know what God's done in you and who you are now.
So yeah, the
So
second
it's
element is like what she said, know what God has done
Mhm.
and know that God is not who you thought he was either. God is not angry at you. God is not
Yeah.
trying to get you to do something for him that to make it so you love him. There's a lot of perspective changes I've had of God. Maybe not that extreme in the sense of I never thought God was mad at me, but maybe I needed to do just the right thing for God to show up. And that's not who he is. He's here always. He doesn't need you to do just the right thing.
Mhm. Thank goodness.
So my perspective of him is different now.
Yeah.
So it's a focus on him this year, and in turn that helps us to focus on even who we are is different. So what areas do we need to change our focus about who we see ourselves, how we see him? Those are the one area. So the second question is, how is what God told you coming to pass already? So from the past, but also from this year we both felt like God is already moving quite quickly in 2025 with what he said. So if you didn't get a word this year, that's fine. Some people got a picture. That's awesome. Picture even better. You got to figure out what that is. It's fun to figure that out with him. Some people got a phrase. That's fine too. Whatever God told you, it's already coming to pass. I'm not even going to say we're waiting for it to come to pass because I believe it's already come to pass. But sometimes it's hard for people. Most of my life, I'm helping people see how what God has said is already coming true. That's a lot of my work. Like
Yes,
God is
it
always
is.
speaking, but a lot of people just can't see it for some reason because our perspective needs to be changed. So how is what God told you already coming to pass? Yeah, you got some of that
So many
happening.
ways. Mhm. Yeah. Well, this year my word is timing. And last year was summit. Like it had to do with like the adventure along the way. The year before that was pause. These are all things that are having to do with timing and be present and trust the timing and not try to move past those things. And I'm very much a future thinker. It's hard for me to be present in the moment. And honestly, this year, God's told me about timing. He's like, just trust my timing, trust my timing. And like instantly this year, I've had to deal with some things that are harder. And I wanted to fix the issues right away on my own. And I was just like, okay, God, what do I do with this? Because I don't even know.
Mm.
Like, because I want to deal with this right now. And I'm not sure how to deal with this situation. And he's like, just trust the timing. What's coming to your mind right away? And then the certain person popped up in my mind. I got a hold of them right away. And the timing of it couldn't have been more perfect for exactly what I needed to do. And I can't share all the details of the story. I wish I
Yeah.
could, but the timing was absolutely insane.
Spot
It
on.
was
Yeah.
spot on. If it was 30 minutes earlier or 30 minutes later, it wouldn't have worked. But the timing of this whole situation. And so, in even after that, dealing with other situations, I'm like, oh, maybe I should do this. Trying to go back to the same scenario that I've done before in the past of dealing with it right away and knowing that like the word timing came up. And I'm like, no, the timing was perfect with this. Let it be where it's at and trust the timing.
That's
So
funny.
it's been
So you hear that in your head when
constantly.
you're actually like thinking about taking measures in your own hand. You
Yes.
you hear the word pop up.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, okay, timing, like trust the timing, pause. It's all the things that I've been told the past several years.
Yeah.
So
So not just the one word for the year, but all
it's
the
all the
several words.
word.
They're all coming together, kind of
They are, yeah.
meshing together. Yeah, mine is the same. I would say that obey quickly and confidently was last year, and I'm definitely very much in that this year.
Mhm.
My new word for the year, God told me, was resurrect. I'm like, okay, I think that's good. I didn't have any negative feelings about it. And then he said, believe again, and I instantly went, oh, like about
That's
what?
scary.
What do you want me to believe again? And I will say that last year, the end of last year, we had like 5 people leave our learning center, and some of them were planned. 2 of them were planned. 2 of them
I
were
think
not.
employees.
Yeah, employees.
Okay.
5 employees left our learning center, and that's a big deal for a 30 employees or 25
Mhm.
employees that we have. And I'm like, okay, something's up. So I began to do exit interviews and stay interviews, and we did surveys, and I could tell that God was challenged, or I was being challenged to believe the culture that God's trying to bring to the learning center. And like God has told me a certain culture, I've been working really hard towards it, and this was coming against it, like it's not possible, which felt familiar to me. And so my word flashes like Danny, like believe again, and I'm like okay. And I don't really wrestle with it very long. I just did. I just jumped at it like it's true, and we've had quite the month already. This month we've had a lot of good stuff happening. We've hired a couple of 3 amazing new people,
Mhm.
but the bigger thing is the way the leaders have, and we have all come together and really found the real issue. There are some real issues that we needed to address, and they've come to the light, and it's been pretty challenging to deal with at first, but it's been smooth.
But the growth
The growth has been amazing.
in our leaders has
Yeah,
been
like
so amazing.
yeah,
And normally having conversations about where people might be not doing
their
good
job
or
right,
failing or not doing their
really
job right
hard.
has been so amazing.
I
Like,
didn't even need to bring them up.
yeah,
It was
they already
hurtful to
knew.
hear the complaints of others. Don't get me wrong, but we heard them and we owned our own stuff quickly, and it's bringing results.
Yes.
So how has God told you coming to pass? I would say it's coming to pass already. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's the second question. So the first one is what perspective change do I need? The second question is how is what God told you coming to pass already this year? And then the last one is how is His story happening around us and in the world? So I like this topic myself because I like to look at what God is doing all over the world. It's my favorite thing. But let's start with how is his story happening around us? I've had tons of things happening already that's made me want to like interview the people I'm talking to. Like we need to do this on video
Like what?
because his story's happening. I can't say some of them because we're gonna do videos.
Oh, okay. Got it.
But I've had people that come, and then you've had people asking you questions. Big picture wise, people are coming, like Danny said at the beginning of this. People are coming and asking people about God, Even our girls are getting questions at school, like about God.
I have had more questions about just like who is God? Like why are you like why do you go to church? Or like why do you believe in God? Like totally like not in a judgy way, but like
Curious.
from a genuine place of just like not knowing
Yeah.
who God is. And I have never been asked point blank so many times just to share my experience with God and what that looks like. And it's been so funny because I have to say, like in the moment, how people are asking me this question, I feel like I am disqualified because it just feels so like they don't know anything about God. So then I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, how do I even project this? Like, what do I say that, is going to make sense to them? And then I have to remember that I am in the situation with this person. I am the right person.
Yep.
They're asking me
They feel
because
safe with
they
you.
feel safe and my perspective is going to be exactly what they need to hear. So I think it's important to know that if people are coming to you, to not feel like you have to like be like, oh, well, come to church with me, or um, let's go to this meeting together so you can hear about it. These people are coming to you and to me because they want to know what it means for you. Like, what kind of relationship do you have with God?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? And it doesn't have to be all buttered up. It doesn't have to look like this presentation. It just has to be super real. Like, I just will share like how I pray to God and like what that my days look like. And they're like, oh, wait, you don't like fold your hands or like, do all these different things. And I'm like, oh, no.
Rituals.
Like when I'm running, I just talk to him like just like a normal person. It's like, this is how I talk to him, just like I'm talking to you right now, and they just find it so like
Interesting.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But I've just never been asked so many times this as of recently, like, who is God? Like what is this?
That's awesome.
So it's been really
It's been
fun.
happening to our girls too. I mean, London's at a Christian school, but even there, she's having deep conversations about God with some of her friends. And then Aubrey's having, there people are asking Aubrey about what do you believe?
Mhm.
And it's pretty interesting that people are very curious right now. And I see that over the big picture as well. I see that I keep saying it, and I'm gonna keep saying it because I'm praying for this guy. Joe Rogan's gonna get God's gonna get him, and people are sending me videos of like he had an apologist on. If you don't know what an apologist is, it's someone who takes on really big questions logically and proves it with Bible and God and all this stuff. And so, very very smart theology type questions. And Joe Rogan had this guy on from Canada that just totally basically had this atheist on, and this atheist ended up looking just not Joe. This Canadian guy had this atheist on his podcast, and just he looked like a fool. So much so that he's trying to sue the guy because he's like, I don't want you to post any of what you said because his questions just look so bad.
Oh man.
So Joe Rogan had this smart guy, this theology or this apologist on, and was asking some really crazy, great questions. Like, do you think it's possible that Jesus faked his death was faked so they could prove this?
Oh
And
wow.
he went into just real good detail, and he was asking. Joe used to make comments blatantly against people who follow Jesus, like they're dumb for
Like
following him.
mocking them.
Yep. And he doesn't do that anymore.
Hmm.
He has a whole bunch of people on, and and then he had Mel Gibson on this last week, which Mel Gibson was telling him about his God stories, and how he was actually, I guess he was accidentally hung one time on a set
Oh my
once,
gosh.
and like just these things that he's had these encounters with God, and he was just very real. Like Mel Gibson's not fake religious; he's pretty raw. And Joe Rogan's just listening and like, man, this guy, how can you not say yes to Jesus? So you can just feel it. You can just feel him being drawn into. And I'm praying for that. I see that kind of stuff happening all over. I'm seeing moves of God everywhere on the planet. And I got to talk with some other pastors sometimes, so I'm pretty lucky. And I get to hear about how God is moving, not just here, but everywhere. The church itself is going through a change in the way the structure is done all over the world, not just here, not just with us. I know it looked like we're the lone rangers over around here sometimes. We're trying to figure out how to do church differently a little bit, and we really feel like we're following God's lead. And but then when I talk to other people, I have one group that I meet with once a month, and none of them have a normal church. None of them have a. They all have one has a house church. Two of them have a house church. One of them has a Friday night gathering they call Joyland, and it's very deep in theology and filled with joy. I'm like, this is like great. Like they have some great groups, and we're asking God about what are some of the ways we're doing this differently that's working that you want, and we all felt that God was going to make. his body, his church, relational into the area that they're in. There's not going to be a black and white way of doing church. There's going to be a very this way. This is a perfect way to do it for Bellingham. This is a perfect way to do it for New Jersey. This is like because of who God's sending us to.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So lots of things around the world. So God's story is happening. As you were sharing, I realized how is I was thinking about how you're saying that get ready for how his story is real in your life. Like I was thinking if you're getting asked questions, people better be ready to be asked, well, who is God to you? Like get ready with your God story. Get ready with like well, who is God to you and how did you meet and when did it change for you? Because we don't always think about that. We think about where we're at right now, not what the beginning was.
And people are looking for a community and for a connection. And I think it's kind of selfish, honestly, to not to say what you really believe. I think it's just like, I don't know if it's shame or embarrassment or whatever people might be experiencing, but I feel like people just want the truth.
They do.
They just want to know what you believe and why you believe it.
And they're
And
reading your confidence in it too when they're
yeah,
reading it. They're reading to see if you believe what you're saying right now, or are you just regurgitating what everybody else told you to.
exactly. So if you're like going to a scenario that you're like, okay, I have it planned out in my mind what I'm going to say, it's not gonna come across as like like a real thing because nobody's gonna believe that if you're like reading off a script. Like, who wants to hear that?
No,
Like, maybe it's a
we believe
story of
this.
like why you
This.
believe this is true to you. Like, people need to know why you're so confident
Yeah,
about what it is. And it could even just be a story about when you were a kid and when you realized God was real or something. Like, it doesn't have to be like this giant thing of like I was healed from this massive disease or whatever. It can be a little thing that just made you confident in who God was
yeah.
to you and how he's been. So,
I'm curious if anybody has had, if any of you have had people come up to you and ask about God, or the second question is have you seen how your word is already coming true this year? Have you seen some examples of that? So people chime in and say if they've heard anything. People have been asking them any questions or how their word is coming true. Have you had that happening already?
yes, have you guys experienced this? Because it feels like it's already very much in action. What this year started very quickly. We
Yeah,
paused before it and we didn't even go into the new year until it was literally the
the
new
new
year.
year. Yeah,
And then God gave us these words, and these words started happening and unfolding in our lives right away. There was like, we didn't skip a beat. It was kind of crazy, but it was the right time for us to just move into those things
yeah.
without like prepping before and having to like manage all the
We couldn't
thoughts and the
plan.
outcome.
We
Yeah, you
couldn't
could plan.
pre-plan. We didn't. He didn't give us a chance to pre-plan.
Yeah. So it's been really good.
So okay, so we're. I asked those questions. If you want to chime on there, have you seen that God making what He told you already come true? Maybe you've got some ways that has been. You can just say simply yes if you want to. Type on there. But if you have, or have you had people asking you questions about God? Is God real, and who is He to you? And when you're at your work, or maybe they don't know you're a believer. Maybe God's challenging you right now to start boldly saying that you believe in Jesus and look for opportunities for that. Danny doesn't go around boldly just claiming it, but they know
They know, yeah. I'm not gonna just I'm not gonna hide it
preach
or
to
act like
them,
yeah.
but you're not going
Or
to attack it.
judge.
Yeah,
Don't judge, please.
yeah, no judging.
Let
So
God do the
yeah,
judging.
um, I feel like we're being commissioned right now. We're being like challenged by God to just be looking for His story everywhere. We're looking for His story in our lives. We're looking for Him in
Mhm.
everything we do, um, and then we're looking for ways to share His story with others as well. So these are the things that we're being challenged right now. So the three questions again are is how um, three areas to look to see Jesus and ourselves differently. Are we different? We are different. The way we see God is different. We're being challenged by God to make sure that our perspective is matching His perspective. That's always changing. We're never going to match perfectly, but it's not what it was for sure. We're not stuck in the past. Our
Mhm.
perspective is different. So number two, looking for how what He said to us from the past, from this year, from farther back. How is what He said to us coming true? Not is it coming true? How is what he said
Yeah.
coming true? That's a very distinctive difference. It is coming true. So how is it? And number three, we're looking for his story everywhere. We're looking for how his story is in your life, in other people's lives, around the world, inventions, healings, things that are happening. We're looking for his story everywhere. Those are the three areas. That's
Yeah.
it. So
Yep.
I thought this year's word was forgive, was hard. Oh my goodness, this year is harder.
Oh,
Oh
harder.
goodness. You also said to love yourself as I do. That's you said something and putting it on your mirror. So I saw that earlier,
That's
Janice.
cool. I like that.
And trust has been a big theme for you,
Mhm.
Janice, as well. I know that well for Rachel. I know there's a lot of people on here that God told us trust Him. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share any kind of thing or any kind of thing? But we're going to do a little prayer here at the end. I think it's pretty delayed today. It seems like it's
Yes, I'm
pretty
sorry, guys.
delayed.
It might be super delayed. Yeah, Janice said, keep him as your center and in your mind, and he'll and his peace you'll find.
Okay.
So that's good for sure.
Awesome. We also had this is a good idea, you guys. We actually had a lunch. Was it last month? And I asked my mom and dad and Patrick to share their stories of how they met God or one of the most significant stories of God. Remember that? That was
That
fun.
was super
So you
fun.
could do that at the dinner table. You could say, "Hey, we're going to do a little weird activation. We're going to ask people to like share their most significant God story." And we were having them share that to the grandkids. So they
Yeah,
get to hear stories of how God is real in their lives and who He is in their lives.
I
Okay, we
love
got some
that.
more people writing. Rachel, I've been some incredible encounters at work. Young people, especially, are totally opposed to religion. Don't want to speak to, and I don't want to speak to a chaplain. I'm real, and I'm who He made me to be, and I say the words He placed in my heart, and it rocks these people. They know it's not me, and that it's real, and that God specifically and uniquely sees them in the midst of their pain and mess. Because you're
Oh,
helping people
that's amazing.
lose loved ones. So
Yeah.
Chris says, "My words be bold." So I laid hands on a injured back of my probably non-believer jujitsu coach and prayed for healing. Yeah, he told me about this. So and that's the most important. So now we just pray for his jujitsu coach to get healed because that's what we need to see.
Yeah,
Because that would be
that's
it's
cool.
great that he's being bold, applying the word, but it would be even better to have his story
That's
come out of
awesome.
that. So
But honestly, even just the fact that you would pray for him, usually that means so much to somebody you don't even know. Like, I think that we're always expecting this big healing, but maybe the healing was just even your connection with him to show
yeah,
him he's loved enough to pray for him. So
yeah.
that's cool.
And it's cool, Rachel, that the young people are being open now because they're seeing you. So
Yes, that's
they're
awesome.
reading you as the book, not the religion that they've been
Yeah,
taught. So
that's so good.
awesome. Well, as people are typing, I want to pray some things over you. So we're just going to pray that we're praying that Jesus would help us adjust our perspective. So I'm just going to pray real quick. Jesus, would you just help each one of us on here that it's listening, watching, or even doing this later, that you would help us adjust our perspective to see what you see, to see you clearer and to see ourselves clearer. Would you also help how you help us see how you're making what you said come true? Help us take our blinders off, not listening to any other story but the story that you're producing in our lives. And would you help us to see the big picture of your story across the planet? Would you help us to see how you are moving and shaking and bringing life in your glory to an earth that's groaning for who you are? And I ask God you would help us to see all these things in this season. God, we're asking for your supernatural manifestations to be to move and shake things to make it so that people go, wow, that has to be more than just knowledge because look at what happened. There's something powerful, and also that they would experience your love that's so powerful and life changing. In Jesus' name,
Yeah,
Amen.
it's good.
Awesome. Okay, let's see what else we got. Some more comments on here. Uh, oh, Rachel says suicide attempts, especially.
Mm,
So that's a specific area. Well, let's see his story and people uh, finding hope again.
yes,
People need hope.
from really dark places. That's so hard.
Very young people, yeah. Yeah, people are being hit. They feel hopeless. Part of it, they feel hopeless.
Mm,
They're listening to the wrong story.
yeah.
And that's the whole point of this. If we're paying attention to his story, hope begins to flourish inside of our hearts. So
Hmm.
bless you, Rachel, and all you're
Yes.
doing over there. Thank you for saying yes to God the way you are.
Yes.
And Chris, keep being bold.
I love it.
I love it. Of course, it has to be someone you got to see every day or every week. Good job.
Good
No
job, though.
regrets. No regrets.
That's so good.
All right, you guys. Bless you guys. Thank you for being on here with us. You guys continue with each other if you're in a house. Pray over each other. Maybe have communion together. Maybe worship. Whatever you want to do as a home. But we will see you guys next week in person at
Yes.
ALife Church. See you again.
Bye, guys.
Bye.